This is Insights Today. On April 24th, 2024, there was a heavy rainstorm which occurred at night and inflicted extensive damage on the Medium Security Custodial Center in Suleja, Niger State, leading to the escape of 118 inmates. The structure and poor state of Nigerians' corrections centers are indeed significant issues that need to be addressed. In terms of structure, many of the correctional centers in Nigeria face challenges such as overcrowding, inadequate facilities, and poor maintenance. These issues not only affect the living conditions of inmates, but also contribute to the overall inefficiency and lack of security within the facilities. Regarding the porous state, as mentioned earlier, the vulnerabilities of Nigerians' corrections center makes it easier for escapees and illegal activities to occur. This is alarming. Now, the lack of proper security measures like corruption and inadequate staffing all play a role in this porous nature of these facilities. Of course, we know efforts are being made to improve the structure and security of Nigerians' corrections center, but it is a complex issue that requires comprehensive reforms and sustained efforts to ensure the safety of both inmates and the public. Hello and welcome to Insight Today. I am Jubmai Manson. I am being joined by Mr. Sani Lassi. He is a security risk management specialist and also the lead consultant in SL Consulting. Stay tuned, the program continues shortly. Don't go anywhere. You're welcome back, and if you're just tuning in, this is Insight Today on Global Television. Now, regarding the porous state, as mentioned earlier, the vulnerabilities in Nigerians' correction center makes it easy for escapees and illegal activities to occur. Now, the society at large, the fear of living and knowing that inmates are wandering, it's a certain way of concern for most people. Now, the lack of proper security measures like corruption and inadequate staffing all play a role in this porous nature of these facilities. Does it mean that our correction centers are decade-old and cannot endeavor for our individuals in government to ensure that these facilities are in proper check when it comes to inmates who are of harm that cause harm in our society? We might say efforts are being made to improve the structure and security of Nigerian correction centers, but how true when we know that on April 24th, we understood that in 2004 there was a heavy rainstorm which occurred at night and inflicted extensive security custodial center in Suleja, Niger State, now leading to the escape of over 118 inmates. Now let us talk about the structure. Does it mean that the structures are not strong enough to hold in these inmates who are sentenced to some life imprisonment, some certain months imprisonment, and some years imprisonment? That is a cause of concern for most individuals in the environs and, of course, the nation. Now, the structure and the porous state of Nigerian correctional centers are indeed a significant issue that needs to be addressed, that needs proper hands on deck when it comes to talking about the structures, which many of the correction centers in Nigeria face challenges such as overcrowding, and the worst is the inadequate facilities to ensure that these inmates come out better and remorse for the crimes in which they have committed. Not mention a few like poor maintenance. There are issues that not only affect the living condition of inmates, but also contribute to the overall inefficiency and lack of security within these facilities. Now, talking about the poorer state, as I mentioned, let's look at the vulnerabilities in Nigerian correction centers. It made it very easy for the escapees and illegal activities to also happen. Now let's look at the security measures like corruption and inadequate staffing all play a role in this porous nature of these facilities, leaving individuals in society to live in fear. Now 118 and some who have been caught makes you wonder the lackadaisical measures in which the government is going about this particular issue at hand. Now who is to blame? Do you blame the correctional centers which are old and cannot hold times when it comes to standing as a structure holding inmates with just rain, making it to crumble down into pieces, allowing inmates to escape? Or do you blame the government who have forgotten that even when these particular inmates are in prison, they need activities to reform them, to make them better Nigerians when they have served their term? Now, we're going to be looking at this very critically by Mr. Sani Lassie, who is here via Zoom. He is a security risk management specialist, and he will be talking to us in depth when it comes to the structure and also our correctional centers in Nigeria. Stay tuned. Insight Today continues shortly. Thanks for tuning in on the program Insight Today. And like I said, I am being joined by Mr. Sani Lassie. He is a security risk management specialist and also the lead consultant in SL Consulting. And good afternoon, Mr. Sani Lassie. How are you doing today?
Good afternoon, Jumai. I'm okay. How are you?
It's great to have you on the program. Thanks for joining in.
Thank you for having me.
All right. Mr. Sani, I want us to look at and let's discuss about the porous nature of Nigerian correction system and center, and also the danger and effect it has on the society.
Okay, thank you. You know, first of all, you can't discuss the porosity in isolation without discussing the judicial system. You can't just pick up that without discussing the judicial system. You can't say that without discussing the overcrowding problem, the issue of structural integrity of the physical structures of these facilities, the mental state of the inmates, the safety of both officers and the inmates too, the physical structure around the facilities, the safety and security measures, intelligence gathering and exchange of information. You can't discuss, we have to discuss all these things comprehensively because everything that I've just mentioned have to do with the porosity. One or two things that are interwoven. You cannot just figure out porosity and say, okay, our jail. No, one or two things led to. And our problem has been, or is and has been, lack of institutional framework, which is majorly responsible for the porosity. And you're talking about the effect, the danger of society. I'll take you back to the memory line. You know, the major jailbreak, I'll start from 2016, and you will see the frequency. You will see why these people kept coming back. You will see why the so-called, because I don't want to call them, I call them prisons. Hello?
Hello, I'm with you. Please go ahead.
Okay, yeah. I call them prisons. They are not correctional facilities because correctional facilities are meant to correct the attitudinal behavior of the inmates, not to
Mr. Sani,
harden
isn't it
them.
the same thing? Sorry to interject before we go into it in depth, but isn't it the same thing when you talk about prisons and correctional facilities? It's interwoven, isn't it?
No, prisons are for prison. Like, you know, Nigeria Prison Service changed its name from prison service to correctional service.
Yes, exactly.
Why? Yeah, why? To make the prisons look like correctional facilities where people can go to a camp that can be reformed. But the reverse has been the case. People will go in there and turn to hardened criminals. Suspects will go in there, mix up with the hardened criminals. Awaiting trials, have been locked up with murder case, terrorists, and all those stuff. What do you expect? It's collateral damage.
So are you trying to tell us?
We are just sitting. Yeah, we are sitting on the.
Are you trying to say that most of these inmates that go into prison, they don't come out being removed, being corrected from the crimes in which they have committed? When
No. They've been there. You know, they mix up with like their colleagues in crime. Okay, now you arrested a man for stealing a phone. He has been awaiting trial for like 5 years in the same cell with someone that killed, in the same cell with someone that raped, in the same cell with someone with a terrorist. What do you expect? The same thing, you know, because when you see some of these people interviewed, they say, okay, how did you guys meet? We met when we were in jail, and we exchanged contact. That is it. So the so-called correctional facility has not been doing what is meant for.
Well, you know, in the prison cells, are they really allowed?
Of course, when they go out, yes, when they go out, they exchange contact. If you listen to a robbery case that happened long time ago in Ikere, those guys, they met, like 4 of them met where they were in the prison, awaiting trials. So it's no longer correctional facilities because as I mentioned, the mental state. The mental state. How do you treat those guys? How do you treat the inmates? How do you relate with them? Everybody was amazed in December last year when the Comptroller General was defending a budget of 750 naira per day for an inmate, whereas 800 naira per day for dogs. How do you want to defend that? 750 naira per day for an inmate, while spending 800 naira per day on a dog. How do you want to defend that? So we are not just, that's why I say we can't just isolate the porosity. We have to discuss everything in detail before we want to get to the root of the matter.
I completely understand.
If, yes, because everything we're just going back to the same, which is institutional framework. We don't, our public policies are nothing to that. We just, when we say this, if you change the name 100 times, but if you don't change the institution, if you don't change the framework, if you don't change the attitude, behavior, it will still remain the same thing. Do you know how many times we've changed Nigeria police force uniform? If you like changing names, but have you been able to change the character involved, the institution involved? No. Okay, now the Shuleja jailbreak. Juma, do you know the Shuleja they call it custodial center, was built in 1914? Do you know that?
Yes.
That particular structure was built in 1914. And I can bet you no major renovation has carried out made over the past few years. So it's weak structures, old, obsolete. And you have hardened criminals there. You have hardened criminals there. That place was built for 250 inmates. As at when that thing happened a few days ago, they have 530. Out of 530, you have 347 on awaiting trial. Can you imagine that? Out of 530 inmates, you have 347 on awaiting trial. That is overcrowding. And why did they get to go overcrowding? Our judicial system. How will someone be on awaiting trial for like 6 years, 7 years, 10 years, 20 years, 15 years on awaiting trial? And you expect that kind of person to come out and become out reformed or hardened? No, it won't come out reformed because it's pained.
But really, Mr. Sani, let's say, I get this. I understand what you're trying to say. Well, let's look at it critically now. These individuals are hardened criminals who have caused a lot of menace in the society. For as much as they should be treated as human beings, but really, they got themselves into where they found themselves. Don't you think? Some of them have committed murder. They've killed innocent people. They've stolen lives and property. So if they are going through all of these things, don't you think it's nemesis for them to have that remorse feeling and be better?
Yes. I guess we are talking about. If you say that to a terrorist, if you say that to a murderer, if you say that to a rapist, I will show that you should have, but not to say that to someone that has been awaiting trial, and you place the same person with a murder suspect, or someone that has been even convicted for murder, convicts. That's what I'm talking about. I'm not talking about the real convicts. I'm talking about, like I said, the real convicts in Shuleja are not up to the people who are waiting trial. The real convicts in that Shuleja. So when you have 530 inmates, out of them, there are 347 on awaiting trial. So until we separate these people, where you have the custodian, you have the correctional facilities, and you have the prisons. The prisons are for the convicts. Correctional facilities won't maybe for the misdemeanor, maybe, okay, you committed an act, maybe not felony, maybe robbery, maybe stealing phone, maybe.
Right?
You take that, okay, talk to reform the person, when the person comes out. Yeah. When the person comes out, he will become a better person. Custodian should be for awaiting trial. But in Shawaba, we have all of them lumped together. And anytime this thing happens, you will see paparazzi. You will see, after the posing for pictures of the dignitaries, the ministers, everybody. That is the end. Nothing will be done. When the Kuje happened 2022, we had the same thing the minister said now, then said the same thing the minister now said after this one. You just go back, and these people, they know they are just waiting for opportunity to present itself, and they go out. If you look at the children, they punch their way out. Not the rain did not affect the building, but it affected the perimeter wall. Those guys punched their way out of the building. That's to tell you the building is so weak. And after many days, do you know that the authorities have not come out with the identities of the escapees?
Exactly. You know, I mentioned
So
that.
how do you want to capture them? Whether you are in the same vehicle, how do you want to identify them?
Mr. Sani Lassis, I mentioned that at the beginning of my preamble. I said after so many days, we did not see the identity, the identity of these individuals, the escapees. We did not see. So I think the structure has to do with individuals who are in charge of these prisons, or we say correctional centers. I think there is a lackadaisical attitude when it comes to dealing with these inmates. Don't you think? Like it should start, the body work should start from individuals. The government has a big role to play. You know, you mentioned something like the buildings, our ancient buildings, they actually punched their way out. Is it that these inmates have weapons with them in the prison? Are they not properly checked? What are the custodians doing when it comes to things like this? Policemen, all of these individuals who are supposed to be on guard when it comes to inmates in prison, not the ones awaiting trial, because those ones are light crimes when it comes to phones, armed robbery, not the ones that have committed murder, so on and so forth. So where do you think is the way forward when it comes to issues like this?
You're talking about maybe they have weapon with them. No, I don't know how. I don't know. Maybe you don't know how effective a punch is when on a weak building. If a building is weak, I can push my way through. These guys have been locked up for years, and they have opportunity to go out, and they know the state of the building. They know how weak, how old. If you look at the pictures from their bedside, those guys from their bedside, they punch out. They were able to punch out themselves out of that place. They don't, not weapon. Your punch is your weapon. Your bedding, the wood is a weapon. You can use it when the building is weak. You can use that to punch your way out. And you're talking about the individual. It's not about individual. It's about the authority in charge. You can have a commandant, or I don't know what they call them, a commandant of a custodian. It is what the controller general releases the commander that would use to take care of the inmate. The commander does not have anything to do with the structure, the renovation, the provision of security, the provision of food, the provision of security, the provision of renovation of the structure. No, it's the central authority. It's the central authority. And let's talk about it. Why do you have overcrowded custodian in Suleja when you have one in Mina and another one in Kuje? Why do you have that in Suleja in the residential area? Why? There are some things we have to reform our prison service. We have to reform everything. That's why I say you cannot just, the porosity, yes, fine, it's there, but we cannot talk about it in isolation without talking about everything entirely.
Yeah, that's why I said let's talk about it in general when it comes to the custodian, the commandant, everyone encompassed. But right now we're looking at the porous nature of the building, and of course the porous nature of correction centers when it has to do, like you said, you don't want to call it correctional centers because of the happenings, and we prefer prison. Now, in all of this, how does lack of proper infrastructure impact the security of these facilities?
You know, when there's what they call a vulnerability test, and there's a risk assessment. Every facility, the government or the authority in charge should endeavor to conduct risk assessment on all the facilities across the country. When you do that, you identify the loopholes, you identify the vulnerabilities. As for me, presently our facilities are just exposed vulnerabilities, exposed ones. They can be attacked at any time. Apart from the natural disaster, like what happened in Trilogia, they can be attacked. Yeah, they can be attacked at any time. They are prone to attack at any time. Because of what? Because of lack of basic security features. A proper custodian ought to have concentric security measures, not just a perimeter fence. Do you have CCTV there? Do you have the database? Do you know how many people come to that place every day? Do you have the information system? Do they manage their incident properly? We see them with guns, but were they properly trained? The prison officers, are they properly trained to handle weapons? Can they withstand gunmen? When the gunmen invaded the Owerri prison in 2022? Yes, in 2021, they released 1,844 gunmen, and you have guard at the gates. So are they prepared? Capacity, are they prepared? So we need to look at this thing holistically. You need to look at the you talk about the structure, you talk about the installations of CCTV cameras, talk about the intelligence gathering and information. How do you collaborate with the other sister agencies to know what is going on in your surroundings, in your environment? How do you imbibe about the safety culture? These invaders will come. Apart from the rainfall, heavy downpour stuff, what will be so common is the true invasion, like attack, government or no government, terrorists, everything. And this is so common. If you see this so common central, the non-central, the jailbreaks from statistics. So something had to be done. So if you have done your overall assessment, you know that okay, so region is prone or are prone to attack or to jailbreak.
Very true. Especially when
Yeah.
Yeah, you mentioned, of course, we know the incident happened in Mina, we know the incident happened in Kuje, and now Suleja. I know before sorry to interject, but do you think efforts by security agents were not made enough to address the vulnerabilities in Nigerians' prison system? I don't want to say corrections system now, because we know that these structures are old. These structures are way long overdue for, giving a revamp when it comes to the structure being made anew. But do you think efforts to address this vulnerability was not even put in place by the authorities?
Obviously, that is lacking. That is lacking. If not, you will have um, you will have a jailbreak in the same prison twice. In the same prison twice, you will not. So it's lacking. Is a national,
issue.
should I call national issue? Yeah, around all the facilities across the country. It's not just because this, for the mere fact that the government is doing their maybe lacking in their own vulnerability test, the attackers are busy gathering information, are busy conducting their own assessment, are busy gathering intelligence on when and how to attack because they know those facilities are exposed vulnerability. They know when to attack because they can see, they have identified the vulnerability, the loopholes, the weaknesses, and like it has become a current like they will attack today. If it's not done, they will go back tomorrow. Like what happened in Kuje in 2016 when they attacked Kuje 2016. Only two escaped. Nothing was done. They came back in 2022 to attack again, and 877, 879 escaped. The same thing in Koto Cafe, twice, 2006 and 2019. The first one, they released 13. The second one, 122. And these are added criminals, terrorists. Because in the North Central, that's where you have all these terrorists suspects being locked up. Yes.
Mr. Sani, now you mentioned, you said a lot. You mentioned about the poor state of the structure, which I completely agree with you. And of course, you mentioned 2 escapees and then 800 and then a lot escaped. And of course, accountability is nothing to write home about in the Nigeria in which we find ourselves. Now, let's look at corruption. Do you think corruption has played a role in the poor state of the Nigerian prison? Because a lot of people just prefer to feed their pockets and to do the needful when it comes to doing the right thing for the society and individuals in society, forgetting that the roles of security agents are to protect lives and property. Most people forget that, and that is why corruption comes into play. And you mentioned something very critical. They will come in, check who comes visiting, surveying everywhere, knowing what areas to come in to attack. So let's look at corruption. Does it come into play in this particular issue?
Why do you have lack of institutional framework where there is no corruption? That is where corruption comes in. How do you justify feeding an inmate with 750 naira and a dog guiding like 500 inmates with 800 per day? That is where the corruption comes in. Do you know how much we budgeted for this, for innovation, for feeding? 22 billion, 23 billion, more than that every year. And they keep on like releasing funds, not that the fund are not releasing funds. At the end of the day, nothing has been done. So the corruption is a big issue. It's the umbrella of everything I've mentioned, is umbrella. If it's not corruption, someone cannot be in a waiting trial for like 20 years because one big man is keeping him there for life, perpetually. So it is corruption. It's from the head. You know, corruption in Nigeria is like it's cancerous. I describe it as octopus. So many legs. So you can't just when you cut one, it develops. When you cut one,
it springs up again.
It springs up, yeah. So it's
right.
like octopus.
I completely agree with you. Now let us look at the staffing levels when it comes to these prison walls and of course the structure in which we know. Now, how does inadequate staffing levels affect the overall security and control within the correction centers? You know, you said these custodians, are they well equipped? What do they do when they see an inmate who has been who has been in prison for murder, a terrorist, or something very graphic, are they well equipped? So the staffing, do you think there is an issue when it comes to staff management in these prisons, or I prefer to call them correctional centers, but you beg to differ, which is okay, Mr. Sani Lassis. So the thing is, let us talk about the staffing. These people, these custodians, etc., the sergeants who are in prison, do you think they are professionals? Have they gone through the right training? You mentioned sister organizations, which I completely agree with you. Have they gone through that rigorous training on how to protect themselves or how to curtail any prison break?
Okay. You know, before now, the prison warder, we call them warder now, they call them officers now. They were not allowed to, I think, to carry arms. We're just being trained to have armed guards now. They've just been trained to have armed guards. But the problem, the capacity, the ability, the capacity of firing power. Can you withstand someone coming with an RPG with your whole Mark 47? No. Can you withstand someone coming with an hand grenade with your on-service pistol? No.
Of course not.
And someone who has not been paid, or has not yet been fed properly, we stand as, okay, you know what, I want to die for this mission. I want to protect with my life. No. So we need to talk about that's and I said something in the beginning. I said institutional framework. If you change the name of the organization, if you change the uniform, have you been able to change the orientation of the staff, the manpower? Have you been able to do that? Have you been able to, to build capacity? Have you been able to do on-job training for them? No. Most of them, maybe the last time they went for training is when they recruited them. Most of them, maybe the last time they handled guns when they recruited them. That's like how many years? 20 years ago. And you want the same person to be in tune with someone that have been in the bush training every day. So capacity building is very imperative when you talk about manpower and how to control the staff in the prison service. Because the recruitment alone, how do you recruit these people? How do you recruit your staff? Do they go to the proper training? If yes, how regular they go for retraining? How many of them be exposed to it? Hostile environment, awareness training. How many of them are being taught about active shooter? How many of them know what they call active shooter? Okay, how many of them can withstand? How many of them can even withstand a shooter network of attackers? Those are the things we should consider, because like we discussed, like we said, corruption, maybe money. Who knows? We can't just condemn we can't condemn the government for this, or we cannot condemn. But what about the authority involved? Who knows? Maybe you have funds that are being allocated for the same thing, but nothing has been done in this regard.
All right, Mr. Sani Lassis. Now, you are a security risk management specialist, right? Security risk management specialist. That's what you are.
Yes.
Now, in your own opinion, what reforms or improvements are needed to enhance the security and efficiency of Nigerians' prison system, or will I say correction system?
In my own line of data, what I call building a strong culture of risk management. That's first. How do you do? You have to first conduct risk assessment, vulnerability assessment of every facilities. And in a risk assessment, you have a constitutional approach. What is applicable in Suleja is not what is applicable in Cross River. What is applicable in Kano is not what is applicable in Lagos,
Oh,
because you have to
weary.
look at it. And Owerri. So you have to like, okay, who are we in Owerri? Who are we in southeast? I mean, the terrorists? I mean, the suspect you have in southeast. Who are they? The suspect you have there. Who are they? The convict who are they? The one you have in North Central. Who are they? So you know how to be, when you know that when you do your proper profiling, you will know, okay, this is how to profile solution, because it's not just one tech fit all. But in this area, I mean, this part of the world, where they call fire brigade approach, what is being done to one facility in Kano, the same to be repeated to facility in Lagos, whereas they are not the same thing. So it requires holistic approach to identify the necessary areas where things need to be done, the needful. With that, like I mentioned, all the problem is by you attacking the problem one by one. Judicial system, you need to work on that. Speedy trial, not putting someone on a trial for 20 years. When you do that, you avoid overcrowding. When you avoid overcrowding, definitely you will know how many people you have in so cell. You know how many people you have in so cell. But now, I bet you some of these commandants don't even know how many they have in their cells. Now, fortification of physical structures. Physical security goes beyond perimeter fence. It goes beyond perimeter fence. It is a concentric effort. It's like a multi-layer effort you put in place to resist attack, to delay attack, to deter attack, to detect attack, and destroy attack. It's not just that you make a fence and you make a fence. You have what I see nowadays. Like I was going to Kaba and I saw Kaba was attacked like twice. Yeah, and the next thing I saw in Kaba is perimeter fence, with armed guard, a van. That is all. Do you think that would deter the potential attacker? No. What have we put in place? What have we put in place? Now, talking about database. How many inmates as at December last year, the main man was telling us that we have 81,000. That's the CG. 81,354 inmates across the country. And out of that, if we go back to judicial system, out of that, 53,352 are awaiting trial. That is enormous.
Absurd. That's oh my goodness.
Out of 81,000, 53,000 are awaiting trial. So can you see now that the main problem is not even about, the main problem goes about, it is the judicial system.
Yes, exactly. We'll get to that, Mr. Sani. Let's quickly go on a quick break. And then when we come back, you're going to rejoin, and then we'll talk about it briefly, and then we'll wrap up the program. Do stay with us. It's Inside Today on Global Television. Don't go anywhere. The program continues shortly. All right, you're welcome back to Insight Today on Global Television. Thank you all so much for being a part of the program. And I am still joined by Mr. Sani Lassis. And we're just talking about the issue when it comes to the rainstorm which occurred at night and inflicted extensive damage on the Medium Security Custodial Center in Suleja, Niger State, leading to the escape of 118 inmates. Of course, that is food for thought, given a lot of concerns because the structure and the porous state of Nigeria's correction center are indeed significant issues that need to be addressed. And in terms of structure, many of our correction centers in Nigeria face challenges such as overcrowding, inadequate facilities, and poor maintenance. And like I said today on the program, Mr. Sani Lassis, he's a security risk management specialist and also the lead consultant in SL Consulting, and he is back on the program with me. Mr. Sani Lassis, thank you for being a part of the program.
Thank you very much, Lumari.
All right, let's just see how we can quickly wrap it up on the program. Now, with all of these things that you've said, you mentioned a lot of inmates who are in prison and the number, which is outrageous, who are still awaiting trial and nothing has been done. And you mentioned the judicial system. You know, you mostly hammered on the overcrowding. The judicial system, is it that there is so much delay, or don't you think the law is taking its course at the expected time?
Okay. I don't know. Maybe let's quickly say this. In any way I discuss the judicial system, I always use this analogy. There are two approaches to judicial system in Nigeria. Mm-hmm. You have the insecticide approach. Mm-hmm. And you have the deodorant approach.
What happened to the lackadaisical approach? Is it part of it?
Yeah, it's part of it.
Okay.
You know, the insecticide one is part of the lackadaisical, which is meant for that was meant for Mr. Nobody. Mr. Nobody. While the deodorant is meant for the Mr. Somebody. Mr. Somebody will not be on a witch trial for 10 years. Whereas Mr. Nobody will be on a witch trial for 20 years. So, yeah. So that is now about that. We need to do something about judicial system to avoid overcrowding. That is the first step. That's the first step.
Mr. Sani, I'm thinking, don't you think more prisons should be built with the amount of money that is in budget when it comes to feeding the inmates? You mentioned billions of naira, not millions. Don't you think we should build more correctional centers and split these inmates up? Because the more that are awaiting trial and the ones that are in prison, those life imprisonment, those years imprisonment when it comes to 20, 30, 40 years, don't you think, I think that's one of the ways forward. We're not saying that we want individuals to commit crimes and all of that, but with the way it is, there's so much criminality, and I think they should be split into two. Those with heinous crimes should be in one category, and those with minor crimes that has to do with phone theft, burglary, arson should be in one aspect. Don't you think?
Yes, relocations, yeah. Mm-hmm. But the problem is not about building more structures. It's about maintaining what you have. It's not about the quantities, it's about qualities. We have enough structures on ground. It's just for them to maintain, fortified what they have. And with that, you can. Okay, I mentioned Mina.
Yes.
Suleja and Kuje.
Yes, you did.
Okay, now, custodian, they calculate Suleja custodian, but you have convicts there. Mm-hmm. Kuje, you have awaited trials there. So why can't you separate these people? Know that, okay, in this place, we have awaiting trial. Mm-hmm. So there will not be collateral damage when they be attacked, because you know that, okay, kind of a security measure we put in place. To protect that, because custodian is just for awaiting trial, while the maximum, medium, all those are for the adding criminal. So you will know who and who, and this place, who and who and the other place. So,
but Mr. Sani Lassis, I want to interject. When we say who and who, but with what we know, with this long term when it comes to this prison break that happened in Suleja. Most of these inmates do not even have a form of identification because we've not seen them. We've not seen any identification of these inmates that escapees.
Yeah.
Do you think that's a
Yes.
serious problem? We do not have we don't have a proper data system. Do you agree with me?
Yes.
You beg to differ.
I agree with you. I agree with you. I mentioned lack of database. Yes, because if not, we would have the identities of those who escaped.
The next day or in the course
or
of
the
the
next
night.
day, yes, immediately it's just to go into your system and
Exactly.
But now we don't.
And then is
We
it
don't.
possible that it's not all the inmates that will be returned back to the correctional center? It's very true.
It is quite possible. Quite possible.
Okay.
Do you know how many of them still running around the street in Kuje? Those who escaped in Kuje.
Wow.
It's
Causing
quite
more
possible.
harm than good, becoming a menace in the society.
Yes.
Because that's what they
Yes.
know. It's just unfortunate for me. I think it's just unfortunate that most of our correctional centers they do not have the right facilities to actually allow these men to be engaged when it comes to learning a particular skill. It's not taken into that consideration. They just leave them there. When you mentioned 700 naira per inmate and 800 naira to feed dogs. That's a major concern. Maybe that's why there's so much rebellion when it comes to
Yes.
becoming better. They just feel you've counted them as nobody. You've counted them as
Nobody.
we are nothing in the society. So why should we become reformed? Why should we do better? I think that's basically one of the problems. But I'm just saying, I think those in authorities have a bigger role to play when it comes to issues like this. Now, Mr. Sanila says, I know you are a security risk management specialist when it comes to what's the way forward so we can wrap up the program.
The way forward is to work on our judicial system. That is it. And when you do that, you avoid overcrowding. The next, we now talk about the fortifying the structures. If you fortify all the structure without tackling the judicial system, you are not attacking the issue seriously.
Okay.
So we need to do that first.
Okay. All
After
right.
that, we are talking about the structures.
Okay. All right. Thank you so much, Mr. Sani Lassis. I am so grateful you joined me on the program Insight today. And yes, Mr. Sani Lassis, he is a security risk management specialist and also the lead consultant in SL Consulting. Thank you so much for being a part of the program.
Thank you very much, Jumai.
Thank you. I really appreciate it. All right, with that, I have to wrap it up on the program. We hope we've learned a lot when it comes to this issue on ground, when it comes to a very sensitive issue. A lot of people will say, Jumai Mantin talking about Nigerian correctional centers, and we're actually highlighting structural concerns. Yes, overcrowding is a structural concern. The poor, porous buildings, the structures, it has been there for a long time, and it really needs a new phase when it comes to the buildings and, of course, the facilities. And, of course, that's a wrap on Insight today. I am Jumai Manson. Join me same time tomorrow. Thank you all so much for being a part of the program. Bye-bye.